Mary had a little lamb. It wore a collar and tie, and everything that Mary wants, the lamb is sure to buy.
Josie Mansfield was born in 1847 on Kingston Street in Boston, Massachusetts, the first and only child of Sarah H. Gannett Mansfield and Joseph Mansfield, who had both been employed at the Boston Transcript. When Josie was about 3 months old, her parents moved to a boarding house at 13 Lincoln Street. They later moved to 15 Crescent Place, where they lived for 6 months. In about 1850, her father joined the California Gold Rush, and in August 1850, the U.S. Census shows Josie, age 3, was living in Boston, Ward 8, with her aunt and uncle. Her mother appears to have been absent at this time and may have joined her husband gold prospecting. With her father's death came harder times, and Josie moved with her mother Sarah to Mystic Street, near the Bunker Hill Monument. Charles Mansfield, Josie's uncle, was also living in Charleston at this time, and reportedly took a great interest in the widowed sister-in-law, and perhaps Josie too. He invited Sarah and Josie to live with him. Josie would later say that her stepfather sexually molested her when she was 12, and continued to do so for 3 years, threatening to maim her if she ever spoke of it. Josie did not tell her mother, who by this time was drinking heavily. 8 years later, the census shows that Charles Mansfield, 40, was a fish dealer, living with Sarah Mansfield, 38, Josephine Mansfield, 14, and Lizzie Spillard, 27, an Irish-born housekeeper. At the time, Charles owned $5,000 worth of real estate and $1,000 worth of personal estate. Josie Mansfield attended the local school, and her good looks proved very popular with the boys. She had dark eyes, dark wavy hair, and a ruddy complexion. Her well-developed figure was flattered by the shorter hemlines that often revealed a glimpse of petticoat, and the high heels that were fashionable at the time gave her some added height. Unfortunately, her good looks had not only sparked a dark interest in her stepfather, but he had discovered that money could be made to supplement his income. An historian writes, "By the time Josie was 15, her stepfather was selling her to other men. He would frequently stay at home with Josie while his wife Sarah loved to dress up and go into town. He eventually discovered secret letters from Sarah's admirers and filed for divorce." Sarah sailed to California after her divorce and rented a house on Byron Street in San Francisco with Josie in tow. James D. Carter was the owner of the property adjoining Josie and her mother's house. Carter had a profitable transport business and had accumulated a fortune. He became smitten with the teenage Josie and proposed marriage. Her mother objected because of her daughter's age. Carter proposed that Josie should go to the convent of Notre Dame at San Jose, about 50 miles from San Francisco, and finish her education. He offered to pay her expenses until she was of age, and then marry her. Josie was duly sent to the convent, which gave her mother room to marry a professional gambler named Richard Warren. After leaving the convent and returning home, Josie met Frank Lawler, an actor, who was then performing at the San Francisco Opera House. Another would-be suitor was D.W. Purley, a wealthy English attorney. Purley began calling at the Warren home and became attracted to Josie, who later revealed that her mother's latest partner, Warren, forced her to have intercourse with Purley, after which he popped out from under the bed, pointed a loaded pistol at Purley's head and demanded $500. Purley went to the bank after his escape and stopped payment of the check. At Purley's instigation, the San Francisco newspapers published the details of the event, describing it as attempted blackmail between Lawler the actor and Warren the gambler. Lawler, though, claimed to have been in Virginia City, Nevada at the time of the in flagrante incident. When he returned to San Francisco, Josie told him all about it and begged him for protection from her stepfather, insisting, also according to Lawler, that he marry her. And so Josie Mansfield and Frank Lawler married on September 1st, 1864, when Josie had turned 16. In January 1865, the couple left San Francisco and moved to Washington, D.C., before settling in New York. It appears they weren't well suited, and after several months they divorced. Josie tried desperately to find work on the stage, but her attempts were fruitless. By 1867, Josie had become so poverty-stricken that she only had one presentable dress for strolling out, and was long overdue for the rent on her tiny room in a boarding house on Lexington Avenue. She began spending time at the home of her friend Annie Wood on 34th Street. There, in November 1867, she met Jim Fisk, a wealthy financier who was in the habit of handing out $100 bills to women who caught his roving eye. Josie apparently at first rebuffed Fisk's advances and his $100 bills for 3 long months, which inflamed his desire for her. Then she finally relented and allowed him to pay her overdue rent, after which he moved her into a suite at the American Club Hotel. Fisk certainly didn't look like a ladies' man. Although he attracted attention, it was for all the wrong reasons. He was a striking figure, tall, florid, very fat, wrote Lloyd Morris in Incredible New York. His light brown hair was pomaded and carefully waved, his mustache waxed to fine points, and huge diamonds blazed on his frilled shirt front and pudgy fingers.
Mary had a little lamb. It wore a collar and tie, and everything that Mary wants, the lamb is sure to buy.
Fisk eventually bought Josie an elegant home at 18 West 24th, fully furnished it and supplied her with everything her heart desired. The 4-story brownstone had 4 servants, a wardrobe filled with dresses, and a jewelry case mounted with real jewels. The home was a few doors down from Fisk's Grand Opera House and Erie Railroad headquarters at 359 West 23rd. Fisk also had a secret passageway built linking the railroad headquarters and the brownstone where his cherished mistress resided. In January 1868, just 3 months after meeting him, Josie visited Fisk at the railroad offices. This impromptu visit infuriated him, and he rebuked her with very strong words. Fisk couldn't stay angry at her for long though. Her charms in the bedroom quelled his anger, and he gave her $50,000 in cash and about $250,000 in Tiffany emeralds. Josie had to look good for her sugar daddy. She took pains to have her hair dressed daily, and every 2 weeks she had a skin treatment of bismuth and arsenic to keep her skin porcelain white. Besides the emeralds, she received from him diamond necklaces, earrings and tiaras, pearls, corals, medallions, and numerous expensive rings. In November 1868, 9 months after they met, a newspaper, the Springfield Republican, published an exposé of Fisk's relationship with Josie. Fisk had a silent partner connected to his business dealings, a one Edward Ned Stokes who operated an oil refinery in Brooklyn at Hunters Point. Fisk had a secret arrangement with Stokes to discount freight charges for the refinery. On New Year's Day 1870, Josie hosted an open house. Fisk invited Stokes to join him at the party, and there introduced him to Josie. Stokes thereafter became a frequent visitor to her home. It is likely that Josie tried to extort money from Fisk, with the threat of ending their relationship and deserting him for Stokes. Fisk refused to give in to her demands, so Josie sent Fisk a letter ending their relationship. Fisk in turn went to see Stokes and demanded he stop seeing Josie. Stokes' reply was to let Josie choose which man she preferred. Josie wanted the best of both worlds, or at the very least a settlement, and wouldn't be persuaded to choose, stating that she didn't see why they couldn't all be friends. Fisk replied, "You can't run 2 engines on 1 track in contrary directions at the same time." Josie and Fisk made up and broke up again. Fisk then began spending time with Céline Monteland, a French soprano, but his thoughts were still focused on Josie, and it infuriated him that she was still spending time with his rival. Because Josie's plan to extort money from Fisk fell on deaf ears, her next step was to deliver the love letters to Stokes. Several lawsuits took place between the 3 parties, and Fisk was prosecuted for libel by Josie. The reason being he had a former servant of hers make an affidavit stating that he had overheard Josie and Stokes conspiring to get money from Fisk. In January 1871, Fisk arranged to have Stokes arrested for embezzling funds from the refinery. He also took over the refinery by force and obtained injunctions to prevent Stokes and his mother, who owned the site, from entering the premises. The charge was dismissed and Stokes was later awarded $10,000 compensation. Stokes was livid at Fisk's actions and threatened to publish incriminating letters from Fisk unless he was paid substantially more. Fisk obtained another injunction to prevent the threatened publication, claiming he was being blackmailed. On a cold and dreary day in January of 1872, Stokes learned that Fisk was on his way to the Grand Central Hotel. He knew that Fisk always entered by the ladies' entrance, so he went in first and waited on the second-floor landing. When he heard his nemesis climbing the stairs, Stokes started coming down to meet him halfway, uttering the words, "Now I've got you." He then fired 2 shots at Fisk from a Colt pistol, hitting him once in the abdomen and once in the left arm. Stokes tried to flee the scene but was captured. Fisk succumbed to the abdominal wound the next morning, aged 36. But before he breathed his last, he identified Stokes as the assailant. The following week the newspaper presses were running hot. 39 letters from Fisk to Josie were published in the New York Herald 1 week after his death. They weren't interested in Fisk's business dealings, just sordid evidence of his love for Josie and his seething jealousy of Stokes. Stokes was tried on 3 occasions. He claimed he shot in self-defense, and a gun later found in a sofa at the hotel gave credibility to his assertion that Fisk had a weapon. At the first trial the jury could not agree on a verdict. The second was declared a mistrial, and on the 3rd occasion he was found guilty of manslaughter. He was sentenced to 4 years and sent to Sing Sing prison, and later Auburn prison, from where he was released in October 1876. Stokes died in 1901, aged 60. In 1872, Josie traveled to Saratoga, New York, to testify in the court of impeachment concerning Fisk's relations with Judge George G. Barnard. She tried to book a room at the Grand Union Hotel, but was refused accommodation. She tried another first-class hotel in the city with the same result. When she took a seat in the courtroom, several local women walked out. In September of that same year, she applied for a passport. Her passport application describes her as 5 feet tall, with a high forehead, an aquiline nose, a small mouth, dark brown hair, a light complexion and an oval face. The following year she left New York for Paris with Ella Wesner, a male impersonator in vaudeville. This event caused great scandal. It was the focus of attention in many tabloids USA-wide. Josie and Ella went to Paris and presided over a salon at the Café American. Ella, though, returned to the United States alone in the spring of 1873. In 1873, the newspapers reported that Josie was being treated for cancer in Paris. She apparently recovered because in 1874 she returned to New York on the Cunard SS Parthia from Liverpool, England. At this point she disappeared from the public gaze. Many years later, in 1888, the New York Times reported that Josie had died and was secretly buried in Beverly, New Jersey. But a reporter tracked her down at her residence near the Boulevard Perret in Paris. Her auburn hair was reportedly wound in a graceful knot upon the top of her head. The 1891 US $1,000 silver certificate, known as the Courtesan Note, depicts the image of a woman that was based on a photograph of Josie Mansfield. In October of 1891, Josie married Robert Livingston Reed, an expatriate American lawyer, at St. George's Church, Hanover Square, London. Before the event, during a dinner party, Reed informed his friends, "I'm going to marry Josie Mansfield. I'm drinking myself to death, as you all know, and Josie Mansfield is the only person that can save me. I'll marry her if she'll let me, for I think she's been more sinned against than sinning." Reed was a brother of Catherine Strachan, Lady Falkland. His mother and 3 members of the bride's family were present at the wedding. The couple spent their honeymoon at Brighton. They divorced on August the 1st, 1895. Josie at this stage was living at 53 Rue Ampère, Paris, and Robert was living at the Hotel Brighton. Without Josie at his side, Reed seemed destined to fulfill his own prophecy of doom, but in a slightly different form. It was reported in the Duluth Evening Herald, Friday the 16th of July, 1897, thus: "Insane and poor. Sad condition of Robert Livingston Reed, who has lost a fortune. Drink and chloral. His wife is the once famous Josie Mansfield, Fisk's fancy woman." Robert Livingston Reed, a Yale alumnus, a lawyer, once reputed a millionaire, has been pronounced insane by a sheriff's jury. His fortune has dwindled until his income is inconsiderable. He owns a lot of valueless stocks and Western property mortgaged for nearly as much as it can bring on the market. Mr. Reed's mental infirmity is due to excessive drink and chloral. He is actually confined in the Bloomington Asylum, and a committee will be appointed by the court to take charge of his person and estate. The petition to have him declared insane was made by Mrs. Reed. Mrs. Reed was Josie Mansfield. A later report mentioned that Reed was cured at Bloomingdale, and had married a good woman and is now a respected citizen. Robert Livingston Reed died in January 1910. During her later life, several stories appeared in newspapers claiming that Josie was ailing and poor and living with siblings, which was unusual considering she was an only child. One story claimed that Josie lived in Boston from 1896 to 1899, calling herself Miss Josie Welton. The same article claimed she was paralyzed on her right side and was going to live with her sister in Philadelphia. Yet another article claimed that from 1902 through to 1909 she was living as Miss Mary Lawler with her brother in Waterton, South Dakota. She wasn't in any of these locations. In 1931, while shopping at a department store in Paris, Josie collapsed and was taken to the American Hospital in Neuilly-sur-Seine, where she died at the age of 83. Her physician, Dr. G.M. Converse, certified the cause of death as stomach cancer. She was buried on October the 29th, 1931, as Miss Helen Josephine Mansfield Reed, in a grave beside her mother's in historic Montparnasse Cemetery on the southern heights of Paris. Only 2 servants and a friend attended her service. Well, my dear viewers, I hope you enjoyed that presentation. I enjoyed researching that story. I love those sort of scandal and intrigue in vintage New York. By the way, while researching this, I can see that the Grand Central Hotel, where Fisk held the stage with his dollars, collapsed in the 1970s, 1973 to be exact. Here we see a photo of a fireman getting briskly away. It had, let's have a look, we'll have a quick look. So it had turned into a welfare hotel. So from its grand beginnings, it had come down through the decades, and it certainly did come down at the end. Look at that. My goodness. Yeah, you can see here, James Fisk, Playboy financier. So it had its finest hour in 1876, and its final hour in 1973. Wow. Housing for New York's university law students was later built on the site. Luckily no one was killed. Here we see another photo of the actual collapse. Wow. You wouldn't think, would you, such a strong building. I mean, they built them well in those days, but it suffered from the decay over time. Yeah, when you think about the sentencing of Stokes, it was obviously murder. It was obviously premeditated murder, and because of his wealth, he got away with it. That's as simple as that. There is no other way of looking at it. That was not manslaughter. And trying to say that it was in self-defense because they found a gun in a sofa. I mean, Fisk wasn't carrying the gun with him. That was premeditated murder. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section. Yes, it's interesting while researching stories, often you'll stumble upon other stories, and this time I stumbled across a story which connected the dots of an item I bought in the late 1980s, possibly early 90s, in an antique shop in Sydney, and it's this photo portrait here of a delectable young woman. Never knew who it was. Never. All these years I've had this. It sits in my studio here. Didn't know who it was, and while researching this story, I just found out. And I think I will do this very shortly as another video presentation. It's definitely worthy. And I think it must be destiny. I finally found out who she is, and I shall now tell her story. She certainly deserves her story to be told, without a doubt. Apologies that I have to cover up the image, the nipples. You know, it's so bad with YouTube that when this finally does get there in a year and a half's time, it could cause problems. So, ridiculous as it is. But I just thought I'd share that with you for an upcoming story. Very interesting one at that. What else have I got to tell you before I go? Also, do you remember the part where Josie and Ella went to Paris and presided over a salon at the Café American? And I remembered it was a series called Fake or Fortune, which was an English series about finding lost artworks. Some of you may have even seen that in the USA. But what I'm focusing on here is this painting called The Café by Edouard Voyard. And it was part of a triptych that he did for the Grand Teddy Tea Rooms, which was also called the Café American or American Cafe. Just wanted to show you here. This is, I won't obviously play all of it or I'll be stung with a copyright, but this is the actual, I'll leave the link in the description, Fake or Fortune Voyard, and here it mentions the Grand Teddy Tea Rooms, you see, American Bar, and that is where Voyard, he did the triptych for that cafe. And one of the paintings has been lost. I'll just try and click on it here and show you what I mean. That was the main painting he did for the bar, and there was two other round ones that went beside it, which have been missing. And this is the one that's missing apparently. This one here. The main one is in a bank vault in a big place in Geneva where they store artworks. I featured it on one of my out and about videos. But I wanted to show you. There we go. You see, these two of them are missing. One has been found, and the one I just showed you is still missing. Anyway, you can watch that at your leisure. And I just want to show you an item that I bought some years ago in one of my many junk store tours, which, by the way, I have some more coming soon. I've been up in the Alps for a few days. We found a couple more junk stores to interest you, quite good ones too. Anyway, check this out. As you can see here, I have a study of the same painting. Appears to be signed by E. Voyard. Whether it's him or not, I don't know. It's definitely an original painting. It's not a print. It's original. Don't know anything really about it. Appears to be watercolor or tempera. So I just thought I'd share that with you. It's the same scene. You can compare. Not as detailed if it's a study, of course. But I would wonder what history that would have to tell. Unfortunately, on the rear of the frame there are no labels depicting where the item was framed, but the frame appears to be handmade, also by what do they call it? In Germany it's a Drechsler, a turner, a wood turner has obviously did that, but with primitive equipment. It seems to have been actually, I think, done out of one piece of wood, the frame. But yeah, I thought, well, wow, but what a shame I don't have the original painting, which is still missing. I think you'll find out when you watch that episode of Fake or Fortune. Somebody out there has that missing one, and it's worth a small fortune. Anyway, my dear viewer, I think I have rambled on enough, and so I hope you've enjoyed the adventures that I've took you on this time around. Looking forward to many more. I can't think of anything to say. I think I will come to a close now. Thank you, as always, for your loyal support, and until next time, God bless. Take care, and bye-bye.